Good morning. This is Dan again from California. It's pretty hot here, as I'm sure it is across most of the country, it being summer. But I am filming early today in the car again because I don't have anything to hold the iPad, so that's why I'm looking at an angle too. But I just want to say happy Labor Day weekend. I hope you're all doing well. So let's talk about movies. Let's get right into it. I want to talk about one of my favorite movies, Psycho, from Alfred Hitchcock. This is going to be the second in probably a three Hitchcock series. Uh, um, and the next one will be The Birds. But today we're going to talk about Psycho. It is a really interesting movie. Let me tell you about the first time I saw it. It was when I was a kid, probably a teenager, like 12 or 13. And there was a station in San Diego, Channel 6, that used to show movies on Sunday evenings or late Sunday afternoons. And this was one of them, was Psycho. And I had never heard of it. And I think it was my mom said, "Oh, you should watch this movie. This is really interesting." So I sat down and watched it, and ever since then, it's just intriguing. It's been said that Psycho might be Hitchcock's most famous movies, uh, most famous movie rather, and I would probably agree because I think probably more people have seen Psycho than almost any other Hitchcock movie. It stars Anthony Perkins, um, who has unfortunately passed away, but from all accounts seemed like a very nice actor. And Janet Leigh, who was married to Tony Curtis at the time. And Janet Leigh was a pretty big star, pretty big movie star. Her daughter, one of her daughters, is Jamie Lee Curtis, who she had uh, during her marriage with Tony Curtis. Um, so Hitchcock had made Vertigo, which we talked about last time, and Vertigo was not really a hit because it got poor reviews and it was not received well by audiences and it did not make money. I think it lost money actually, um, or barely broke even. Um, and Paramount was not pleased because, movies used to and still do cost a lot of money to make. So Hitchcock had gone to MGM and made North by Northwest with Cary Grant, which was very successful. And then North by Northwest is a much more action oriented film with a lot of Hitchcock touches. Um, so he comes back to Paramount and says, "Hey, I found this book and I want to make a movie out of it. It's called Psycho." And Universal was less than thrilled about this idea because A, Vertigo had not done well at the box office at all. B, Psycho was was kind of risque. And C, they just thought it was too kind of shocking for a movie. And Paramount was trying to talk them out of it. And they were saying, "Well, we'll do it, but we're going to offer you less money than we usually pay you." And Hitchcock, he didn't like that. So he worked a deal where he paid for the filming of the movie himself and then Paramount released it. Um, so Hitchcock filmed it at Universal in a deal with them, and he and his wife financed the movie, which even then was still like $70,000 or something like that, which is a huge amount of money. And today, 60 years later, that would be a vast amount of money. So they invested a lot into this movie. Anyway, let's talk about the movie. It is a mystery. It's kind of a thriller. Some have called it kind of a psychological thriller. I think I would agree with that. It starts out, first of all, let me tell you, Psycho is a very deceptive movie. Starts out, Janet Leigh's character is this woman named Marion, who is who is in love with a man in some town called Fairvale, which I've always taken to think of as being Fresno, California, who comes down to visit her in Phoenix. And, Marion is not young. She's not a young, coquette woman. She's not old. She's not middle-aged, but she's getting older, and she wants to get married, and she is in love with this guy. Excuse me. Who has an ex-wife and has debt from his father who's passed, and he loves Marion too, and she wants to get married the worst way, and he just he can't afford it. I'm sorry. So she goes back to work. She works in a real estate office. A man comes in and is buying a house for his daughter for her wedding present with $40,000 cash, which, again, you always have to adjust because, Psycho was made a long time ago. But even then, even now, that's large money, and that's money that Marion is asked to deposit in the bank over the weekend by an employer. But Marion wants to get married, and she makes a decision that she later regrets, to embezzle the money. Instead of taking it to the bank, she goes home and she packs up her things with the money and decides to drive up to see her boyfriend in hopes that she can give him the money to get out of the debt so that they can get married. So she's nervous, but then she's driving out of town and she sees her boss walk by, and she's already told her boss, oh, after I go to the bank with the money, is it okay if I go home because I don't feel well? And her boss is nice and says, oh yeah, that's fine. And so she happens to see her boss cross the street, and he looks back at her like, what are you doing here? And then she drives off. Now she's even more nervous. And then we go into this really fascinating scene where she's driving her car, and all these things are running through her head. She's imagining what's happening. And there's a lot of voiceover work about, well, have you heard from Marion? No? Well, she hasn't arrived yet. Oh, okay. Well, let me know when she does. and and then her sister hadn't seen her. Nobody knows where she is. They discover the mother's missing, and she is imagining all this as she's driving, and she's getting more and more nervous. But she's kind of determined. I think it's because she feels like she's past the point of no return or whatever. And there's a lot of wonderful work, a lot of wonderful lines. She stops in sorry, my stuttering is a little bit more than usual. She stops in Bakersfield to trade in her car because she's nervous about that. And there's this wonderful line where she pulls into this used car lot, and this guy comes out and who owns the lot, and his first line to her says, "I don't want any trouble." And she looks at him like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on? They know." And he says, "Oh, the first customer of the day is always trouble, but I'm going to be honest with you." And he's going to the sales pitch, and all she wants to do is get rid of that car and go and be gone. And the car salesman, he knows something's fishy going on, but she has the money and she wants to buy the car, and she's got the paperwork from the DMV showing that, her car, she owns her car. So then she drives on, and it starts to rain, and that's when she decides to stop for the night. And cinematic history starts because she stops at the Bates Motel, which is this motel off the main road. She's gotten off the main road because of the storm, and she meets Anthony Perkins as Norman Bates, who lives in a house up above the motel, who comes down, and he's very nice, and he checks her in, and he gives her cabin 1. There's 12 cabins. It's like a tourist motel type place. Um, and and what's interesting about Psycho too is, side note, this would be a longer video, I gotta tell you, because I love this movie. The cabins, the outside of the motel looks like it's kind of maintained well enough, but not real fancy. But the cabins inside, they seem well appointed. They seem nice. So she checks in, and she's talking with Norman, and she says, "I'm kind of hungry. Is there some place to eat?" And he says, 10 miles away is a diner outside of Fairvale, and Fairvale is where her boyfriend lives. And this is the part that is hard to understand, is that it must have been raining really hard, because she decides, I'm just going to stay here for the night and then drive into Fairvale in the morning. Big mistake. So she goes in, and Tony Perkins says, well, why don't we have some sandwiches, and I'll make you some food, and we can have them here in the office. So he brings them back down, and before he does, you hear, so he brings back down the sandwiches, and they're eating the sandwiches in the office of the hotel. There's a little parlor behind it, and stuffed birds around, because that's his hobby, is stuffing birds. And they have this conversation, which I think is one of the best parts of the movie. I really do. It goes on for about 10 minutes, and he tells her about how he lives there, and his mother lives up in the hotel, and she's an invalid. And he takes care of her. And that he says she's not crazy. She just goes a little mad sometimes. And then he says we all go a little mad sometimes. And she says, well, you seem unhappy. Why don't you go away? And he says, oh, I don't mind it anymore. He says, he says these lines that just burn right in your mind. They're so well written. And this scene shows what a great actor Anthony Perkins was. Because when you combine it to a lot of other stuff in the movie that I'm not going to talk about, even though I think most people have seen Psycho, but it's just, I don't like to give things away for people that for whatever reason haven't seen movies. I'm not into spoilers because you need to experience it and see it and say, oh wow, so this is what Dan was talking about. He says, we're all stuck in our private traps. Meaning his trap is that he's living there, he's taking care of his mother. It says we fight and we claw and we try to get out, but for all the fighting and all the clawing, you can't get out. And she's thinking about this, and she sees how he's not really happy. And she says, sometimes if you're in a trap, one time is enough. And she tells him that she's going to go back to Phoenix the next day and try and pull herself out of the trap before it's too late for her to. Meaning that she's going to drive back and talk to her boss and give back the money and hope that they don't press charges and that she has to go to jail. Because she now knows, my gosh, look at this guy, he's stuck. I don't want to be like that. And then we get to one of the most famous scenes. I would dare say one of the 10 or even 5 most famous scenes in movies ever, where Marion says, it's late, I have to go to bed, thanks for the sandwiches, bye. She goes into her cabin, and she is gonna take a shower before she goes to bed, because she's been driving all day, and she had to sleep in the car the night before. And she's, some people are like that after they've had a long day, a long few days, they want to take a shower. She gets into the shower, and she starts to shower, and then you see, through the shower curtain, you see a figure. and she's in there showering. She's not really looking because she thinks she's alone in the cabin. Shower curtain flings back, and there's a person that you cannot see because they're in shadow with a knife, and the person stabs Marion like 15 times, in the shower, and she is screaming. Janet Leigh is screaming as this is happening because she's being attacked in the shower. And this music, this music that I cannot imitate, but it's this striking music going on real quick. And then this person with a knife leaves, and Janet leaves in the shower, and she's kind of sliding down the back wall because she's dying, And then she falls over the edge of the shower while she grabs the shower curtain, which is on, these shower rings, and it pulls her shower curtain off the ring, and she lands on the floor, partially on the bathroom floor. And then there's this wonderful shot of the drain, water going down the drain, mixed with what they actually used for blood was Hershey's chocolate syrup, because the film's in black and white, and they thought that looked the most like blood. And the shot goes from a shot down the drain down to, and then it superimposes onto her eye, and it comes back up like that. And that's all I'm going to tell you. And I was hesitant about telling you even that, because I don't want to take anything away from this movie, but that's such a central scene. And what's fascinating about that scene is that Hitchcock has drawn you in. For the first 40 minutes, you think, oh, this movie is about this woman who steals this money, and she's on the run, and she runs into this kind of creepy but okay guy, not creepy, but just kind of, there's just something off about him. And then, everything's going good. She takes a shower like most of us do. And then she gets attacked. And this music, this knife is going. And then what I saw the last time I've seen this movie, and trust me, I've seen it way too many times. Like maybe, 10, 15 times. Is the music after she slides down the back of the shower. Remember, I just told you about this. She falls over and she's dead. The music stops. And I never noticed that until this last viewing. And I think that's really interesting because the music stops. And I think it stops because Marion has basically stopped. She's dead. It's over. And all you hear is the water from the shower. That shot took 6 days to film. Janet Leigh has said, she's passed on now, but she said in interviews that she was in that shower for 6 days filming that shot, and she said that the film crew was very concerned about her. They made sure that she had enough water, enough hot water rather, and that she was as comfortable as they could be. And she said, and a lot of people with this scene have reservations about taking showers. Because if you think about it, that is a place that you are vulnerable like very few others. Just, there's nothing you could do. What would you do if that happened? The same thing that she happened. You don't expect it. It just happens. And, oh man. Oh man. It took 70, what did I read? 75, 78 setups, moving the camera, different angles, in order to film a minute and a half of film. Maybe a minute. It's very quick. It's not, rushed, but it's quick. And, but he was so precise. Fascinating show. Fascinating movie. There's so much more to tell, and I'm tempted to tell you so much more. But from that moment on, you don't know what's going to happen in this movie. Psycho keeps you guessing, and it's great performances by so many people. Janet Leigh, who was really probably the most well-known of all the actors, 40 minutes into it, is dead. Well, now what's going to happen, And if you look at the credits, Anthony Perkins is listed as the star of the movie. Martin Balsam is in it. I think it's John Gavin. I think he's in it. I think he plays the boyfriend. Vera Miles, who, remember, was going to star in Vertigo, but was pregnant. But Hitchcock used her in Psycho instead. So, I gotta tell you, if you haven't seen Psycho, do yourself a treat and watch it. But be prepared to take baths for a while, because it is really something. So it's a great movie. It's really fun. It's really well filmed. A lot of great camera work. Surprises along the way. Filmed great lines. I wish I could tell you more. There's so much I'm dying to tell you about this movie, but it just, you need to experience for yourself. If you've seen it, watch it again. Like a lot of Hitchcock movies, you always learn more the more you watch it. But I wouldn't say it's his masterpiece, but it's just a darn good film. Just so well made. Just very, for a suspense, thriller movie, it's made really well. And Universal, Paramount, I'm sure that, they kind of got their comeuppance because Psycho was a tremendous hit. It was a big, big hit, and they lost out. So, side note, and I'm going to end with this. Anthony Perkins would talk about Psycho, and because he kind of got typecast as Norman Bates because the movie was so popular, and people, interviewers would ask him, are you sad about that? Do you feel like you should have been typecast? He says, no, I'm not sad about it at all. He says, I love it. He says, and he was serious. And he says, it's very flattering. People really like the movie. And he too has passed on, unfortunately. Very affable man, very likable man. And he says that, in his words, this would be him talking, I see people in hotels and department stores and restaurants, all over the country, and they stop me and they tell me how much they like the movie, and they tell me stories about sneaking out of their parents' houses to go see it, and what they remember from it, and He says, I just love it. He says, who wouldn't enjoy that? You know, who wouldn't enjoy that? He was part of something really huge, and Psycho is huge. So, until next time, we're going to talk about the birds. I'm sorry this video is longer than usual, but I just love that movie. And I hope you will, and I hope you have a great weekend. Alright, take care. Bye.